The evening air had a bite to it, crisp and carrying the scent of rain-soaked pavement. Eric adjusted the camera on his chest, the lens pointed forward, capturing every step as he approached the derelict office building. His followers were already buzzing in the livestream chat, comments scrolling rapidly on the screen, urging him on. "Looks like we're finally here," he muttered, the faint chimes of his live chat cutting through the cold stillness. "And look at this place." The building loomed before him, windows dark, the faded brick walls covered in graffiti. It was a relic of the past, forgotten and abandoned, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. He knew it had been a corporate office building at one point, but what had become of it now? That was the mystery he was about to unravel. With a flick of his flashlight, the beam cut through the darkness, revealing a narrow alley next to the building. A few rusted bicycles lay discarded beside an overgrown dumpster. The entire scene felt frozen in time, like the city had moved on, leaving this place to slowly decay. Eric stepped inside through a partially broken door, its hinges groaning in protest. He immediately turned the flashlight on again, casting long shadows across the musty, empty lobby. Once grand, the lobby was now nothing more than a shell. Cracked tile floors, peeling paint on the walls, and scattered debris that crunched beneath his boots. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and staleness. As he wandered deeper into the building, his voice was low, speaking only to the camera now. "You guys seeing this?" "It looks like no one's been in here for years," Eric whispered. He moved through a series of hallways, each step echoing in the silence. The walls seemed to breathe with the weight of forgotten memories. Old office doors hung ajar, some of them broken off their hinges entirely, and the floors creaked with every step he took. It was as if the building was alive, groaning under its own weight, but strangely silent otherwise. A few of his followers were spamming the chat, urging him to keep going. "Check out the basement," one user typed. Another comment, "It's gotta be haunted." Eric chuckled softly, glancing down the hall. "Ha! Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised," he replied to the chat. There was something about the space that made him feel like an intruder, like he was trespassing in a place that should have been left alone. But it wasn't the fear of ghosts that gave him a chill. It was the feeling that something else had been there before him. As he reached the end of the hall, he noticed an unassuming metal door at the far end, hidden behind a cracked window. The door was smaller than the others, almost out of place, and its hinges were rusted, its handle barely hanging on. "All right, let's see what this is," Eric whispered, pushing the door open. It creaked loudly, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward into the basement. His heart rate picked up as he descended, the dim light of his flashlight flickering over the steps. The basement smelled even worse, stale, suffocating, like the air had been trapped down here for decades. There were strange scuff marks on the concrete floor, as if something had been dragged or moved in the past. He wasn't expecting anything, just following the lead of the building's darkness and his curiosity. His followers seemed to be on edge too, judging by their fast-paced comments. "Basement? Is this where the real treasure is?" Eric held his breath as the stairs ended. The basement was bigger than he had imagined, a wide, open room filled with old crates and discarded furniture. But there was something strange about this space, something off. It was too clean. "Wait, this doesn't feel right. This basement is too empty." That's when he noticed it. In the corner of the room, partially obscured by some worn-out crates, was another door. Unlike the others, this one was solid, its surface smooth and metallic. A faded sign near it, barely visible through the grime, read "Lab." Eric's breath caught in his throat. The word hit him like a wave of surprise. "A lab?" he whispered to the camera, his voice laced with disbelief. "I wasn't expecting this." With a cautious glance back toward the staircase, he moved closer to the door. It was a strange feeling, a mix of excitement and unease. The building had felt abandoned, forgotten, but this door suggested something more. Something was hidden here, something important. He reached out and pulled on the door handle. It was stiff, but it gave way with a final, low creak. The moment the door opened, Eric's flashlight swept across the room inside. It wasn't large, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in its sheer oddness. Metal tables lined the walls, some cluttered with old equipment, bottles, beakers, vials, and sheets of paper, all yellowed with age. There were strange markings on the walls, incomprehensible symbols that looked more like warnings than anything else. The air was thick with the smell of old chemicals, and there was an unsettling feeling that something had been left unfinished. The atmosphere was heavy with tension, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Eric couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an abandoned space. It felt like a place where time had stopped, a place where something had once happened. "Okay," Eric said, his voice trembling slightly. This is definitely not what I was expecting." He stepped further into the lab, the beam of his flashlight sweeping over the abandoned equipment. But it was what he found next that really caught his attention. On a metal table, partially hidden beneath a faded cloth, was a small vial. Its contents were oily and thick, a pale yellow substance that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. "Guys, look at this," he whispered, zooming in on the vial with the camera. "What is this?" The comments flooded in, but Eric couldn't tear his eyes away from the vial. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. But it was here, right here, in this forgotten basement. A new sensation washed over him, different from the usual adrenaline rush of urban exploration. This wasn't just a forgotten building. This was something else. And for the first time in years, Eric felt like he was onto something bigger than he could have ever imagined.